Well, welcome to the latest edition of TV on the Net. I'm your host, Tom Vartanian. Today's show brought to you by American Credit Union for every day, for everything. Located next to Little Caesars at 3944 Route 281 in Cortland. By Right Angle Creek Farm and Marathon. All natural, pasture-raised Angus beef from our farm to your table. By the Cortland Voice, the exclusive media partner of TV on the Net for all your local news and sports in Cortland County at no cost to you. Check out cortlandvoice.com. By the Royal Auto Group on Route 281 in Cortland, the home of no hassle, no razzle dazzle. Check them out at royalautogroup.com. By Yeaman Real Estate at the entrance to Yeaman Park off I-81 exit 11 in Cortland. And by DJ Philly C. Make your wedding, party, or event extra special with the best DJ in the area. Contact DJ Philly C at 607-745-4346. Well, joining us today is a 2014 graduate of Homer High School. He was a two-sport athlete, football and lacrosse. He didn't play basketball or anything in between, as some of my guests have been, where you said the basketball was kind of the fill in between the lacrosse and football season. So he just bypassed that by not playing a sport in that time of the year. So that makes it a little bit easier. But it's a very interesting story that we have with him today, especially when it comes to his senior football season, which kind of tied in to the end of his sophomore lacrosse season. And we'll get into all of that as we go along. But he had two older brothers and a sister who all were involved in Homer sports as well. So we did it with the Tillisons and the marathon earlier. We are continuing our journey through the Connery clan today with Jack Connery. Welcome, Jack.
Hey, Tom. Thanks for having me. Yeah, it's great talking with you.
It's always fun when you get family involved. It's interesting to see if, there's lots of things you can talk about. So we'll have fun with this. But as we said, your playing days, and I found out from your older brother started, for him, started in Cortland because you guys were in Cortland. And then, when he went junior high is when he started playing sports at Homer, and he was, that's when he was in Homer, but he played all his youth sports prior to that in Cortland and played with guys like Dan Pitcher and some of the real good athletes that come up in that time frame on the Cortland side. You actually didn't start any of your young sports that we said, the youth sports stuff too. You actually were in Homer, so at least you were in that neck of the woods. But like we said, a football and lacrosse player. Football makes a lot of sense because everybody wanted to play football. It seems like that's a popular sport everyone wanted to play with. Lacrosse is a little different because you had people in the spring. You had the option of a lot of people play baseball, but lacrosse is really popular, especially when you consider Central New York and the colleges around us, the Homer Cortland area that play lacrosse. When you talk about lacrosse, you're talking about, especially if you want to watch good lacrosse, you want to watch Cornell play. You watch SUNY Cortland now, actually, throw them into the mix. Hobart had many good years. And, of course, Syracuse University with a very solid lacrosse tradition. So it's lacrosse is maybe not a stretch to people in Central New York because of the fact of the background. But what kind of got you interested in, first youth football and then starting to play youth lacrosse?
Well, yeah, if you go back to those pre-Homer days back when we were in Cortland, the Connery family was baseball. My dad played baseball growing up, and he wanted all of his boys to do that too. But one day Ben got cut from the junior high team, and he said, "What do I do, Dad? I got cut. I can't play." My dad says, "Well, you're not going to play a sport, so just join the lacrosse team." And that altered the course of history for our family. We became a lacrosse family on that day. And I remember Ben coming home with the big goalie stick. They needed a goalie, so he said, "All right, I'll play goalie. Why not?" And he came home with that big goalie stick, and I was just like, "What is this?" And I couldn't, I just wanted to look at it and hold it. And yeah, that altered the course of history for our household that day when he got cut from his modified baseball team.
Yeah, like I said, he started with a goalie stick and he turned into a long pole. Of course, he had preferred the long pole better than being a goalie. But like I said, it starts back initially with the. So, did you get involved with the youth lacrosse program? Something's been growing. Has it grown over the years in Cortland or in Homer? Rich Ciccone, I know, really was a driving force about getting the youth lacrosse going here in Homer. So is that kind of where the love of lacrosse there, where you got into it? Did you kind of get right into it right away?
Yeah, it was just like football. I wanted to get into it because my brothers were into it, and I wanted to do everything they did. But then, Homer has a great youth lacrosse program. We have like you said, Coach Ciccone and his summer camps. Every summer he'd have a week-long camp, and it wasn't it was mandatory. You got to go to that. It's chicks camp. But yeah, lacrosse in Central New York is like apples and oranges. They're one and the same. It's pretty popular here.
So what were your youth football and youth lacrosse days like?
I remember my first practice. We used to go to Casey Fields over there by the old bridge side. Looks like they're doing some construction there now. I've noticed on the I-81. But yeah, we'd meet out there, and I was the only kid who wanted to play goalie, so I was a starter from the beginning. And yeah, I was a goalie from the start. And kids were terrified to play goalie. Usually, you'd have to beg someone to play goalie, but no, that's all I wanted to do because my big brother was a goalie. I'm going to be like him.
So is that kind of where it evolved to? Maybe you probably knew kind of what a goalie did earlier, because a lot of guys I've talked to, the younger brothers were the one that were on the receiving end of the lacrosse shots or the football hits or anything else from the older brothers.
Yeah, it was very, if you're going to play goalie, you're going to get hit with the ball. So you got to be tough. And he made that clear, well, if you want to be goalie, you're going to get hit. And I'm like, all right, yeah, I'm cool with that. Let's do it. I want to be just like you. But yeah, it was not a like ideal position, for most outsiders looking in, but it's the most fun in my mind.
I think, like you say, I think the people get, when you think about lacrosse and, what's it like to be a goalie? I can think back to my days I was growing up. You always had like the thrill of victory and then the agony of defeat stuff on the wild world of sports. And one of them was, of course, the ski jumper. And one of the other ones was seeing a lacrosse goalie taking a ball to the face mask in goal,
Mm-hmm.
helmet go askew and stuff. So it's kind of like, why would anybody want to do this?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, if you ask any real goalie, I bet you they'll tell you it's not, getting hit in the helmet's fine, but the worst is when you get hit in the forearm because, you got to hold your stick for the rest of the game. And every time you're holding your stick, like, man, my arm is sore.
So like you said, following Ben's footsteps, you decided to be a goalie in lacrosse. On the football side, like we said, we did a podcast with you for Trojan Football Talk, so we encourage people to tune into that if they want to find out a lot more about football. We'll talk a little football here today as well on this as well. But you were a lineman. Like I said, you were the guy that made the holes for the glory hounds, like the Alec Bushes, the Mark Doves, the Jake Plunkett's, the Johnny Horners. You were the guys that made the line. You were a lineman early, and that was dictated off early in youth football also.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, making them look good. And in lacrosse, it's kind of the opposite. I get to steal some of their shine. They're trying to score goals, and I get to go, nope, not today.
So you worked your way up through, played 2 years of varsity football, and got to play under Coach Sorensen and Coach Snyder on the JV football side of things. I take it you got to work for, and it can still be his claim to fame. He did coach elsewhere at times, off and on, and was an outstanding goalie, no less, both in high school and in college at Herkimer College. But I take it you got your lacrosse training under Rich Barnes.
Absolutely, he was key to my upbringing. As I couldn't have asked for a better coach as a kid growing up. Especially him being the great goalie that he was. He hosted camps I'd go to, Shutout Goalie Academy. That was at the time when he was at Lemoyne, so we'd go up there for a couple days and see some shots from real college level players. And yeah, I couldn't have asked for a better coach than Coach Barnes at that time.
So how was it stepping in goal for those first times, as a lacrosse player in junior high?
It was, it's what I always wanted to do. It was like, just another day. I don't really have any memories of being like so nervous or anything like that. It's just I go out there and all the kids do in junior high is shoot low at your legs. So that's how that was my bread and butter. Just these kids are going to whip it at my legs. So I look like a hockey goalie half the time. There was nothing to it.
Well, and back then too, it's just, kids just learn how to pass the ball and even keep the ball in a stick to shoot it. So you're not always sure where it's going, but if I do it long enough, like you say, well, at least I know I can shoot the ball low. There's a lot more finesse when you're a shooter to how to make it go where you want it to go. So yeah, those early days, it was pretty much probably a little more predictable.
And we talked about Coach Ciccone earlier, and that camp is where we learned those fundamentals. He gets us out there, and it's not a fun camp where you do just rip on goal the entire time. You're doing line drills, you're doing passing and catching. Like that was kind of instilled in us at that age and at that camp that he ran every summer. And does he still do that? Do you know off the top of your head?
I know they have goes on. I don't think Chick might not do it anymore, but I think, I know the one guy that's really big on a lot of the lacrosse in the area. He takes care, they have some different camps and they have different things going on. Mark Ferrito does a lot of that stuff now. I know he's really one of the people in Central New York that will handle a lot of that kind of stuff. So it's kind of interesting that he's very much involved at that end of things now. So it's a good thing. So as you came up, let's back on football. I said you were a lineman in football, so you got that first season under your belt. It was part of the building process. The 2012 and the 2013 teams were the teams that set the groundwork for that 2014 sectional championship finally. But it started your junior year at Homer when you were on the lineman. And we said it was the senior year for Mark Dove. And it was a young sophomore that came on the scene. It was pretty darn good over his career. Jaden Gavidia. Another one was Jake Hayes. They were both there were a couple of sophomores that came along. And then, of course, guys in your class, you guys like Jake Casey and Connor Simonetta, who both had good careers. Eric Petrie, who was not only not a bad football player, but a pretty good wrestler in his stead. But the team went 4-1 in the B West, and it was a 6-2 season overall. That first varsity season started out with 3 straight wins. You beat Cortland, Lafayette, Salve, as we said, and then lost to Chittenango, but then came back with 3 more wins before losing in the sectional quarterfinals that year to Camden. But again, Mark Dove run for 760 yards there in his senior season. Casey Cleary was the quarterback that year, threw for over 500 yards, and but that's where you guys started laying that groundwork that eventually paid off in 2014.
Right. Yeah, it was a massive senior class, and all great players, some good starters in there. And yeah, they set the groundwork for us, and we set the groundwork for that 2014 team.
And again, as we said, being a lineman, there were a lot of senior linemen there to help a junior named Jack Connery kind of learn his trade. Some of the seniors, just like I said, this was a lot of linemen this year, and a lot of them were seniors. You had Andrew Sharabin and Alec Fisher, John Sarine, Brad Sierra, Nate Stockwin. Nate Cole was the center on that team, and you eventually became the center. You were the center. So that was the guy you were behind then. Also Cody Grant, Seth Ruddick, Matt Stockwin, Kyle Ritz. They were seniors on the team, and then also Paul Suits was in that group, and Nick Gordon. And then along with you in the junior class, you had Nick Holcomb, Sean McGrath, Tony Neal, Brent Bishop. Those, you guys were pretty much the juniors that made up the line there. So I mean, it was a good deep line, and a lot of seniors show you juniors the ropes those years.
Definitely, yeah. And a name in there, Kyle Ritz. He might be the only person to have a drill named after him by Coach Patsievik. He had a scoop and score one game. I think forced fumble, picked it up and ran it back. So the next day at practice, Coach P's all fired up and says, "We're doing the Ritzy drill. Everybody, here's how we do it." You knock the football out, you pick it up, and you run it. We're doing the Ritzy drill. Like, we must have been really impressed.
I hadn't heard of that drill. I know the Andy Parker drill for the running backs. The not from basically. So
yeah,
I didn't know. I didn't know the scoop and score drill had a player connected to it. I'll have to remind coaches about that. I was just told about the Ritz drill. So I'll remember that.
Yeah, the Ritzy drill.
But like I said, that was, that's where you learned. And I should be mistaken to mention also a 3-year lineman that started this year as well in 2012. He was only a sophomore, but went on eventually to be an all-state lineman in his own right, and he was a guard. And we know, as we've talked about before, guards are very important in the Homer offense, especially if they're pulling guards. And Anthony Basile was that young sophomore. But would you learn that first year? Like say you were the backup to Nate Cole, who was the starting center that year.
You just learn how to, dedicate yourself to something. I think that's what I learned most from those guys. It was a team first program. So it was always, you show up, you give your best, and those guys, you set the tone every practice. It starts at 2-a-days in the summer, and, you show up and it's all business when we're out there. And those older guys definitely instilled that in us, and we passed it down too, I hope.
And I know one thing, David Pacilic talked about it. And of course, Anthony Basile, even though he's a guard, became good at it as well. But the centers, a lot of times, you're the ones, they talk about what the quarterback does. They talk what, the tailbacks have to read and all this sort of thing. But a lot of times in the offensive line, it's the center. You're the one that's making the calls where the blocking assignments are going to be depending on the play and stuff. What's that kind of like to be able to do that? How do you read? Okay, we should do this. Maybe do this when your blocker, do that or something. How do you read that as a lineman?
It starts with the game plan and whatever we're going to do, whatever blocking schemes. We're running that play, and it's a lot of communication. It's being vocal, and on top of all that, you got to remember the snap count. So I like to think that the center's got to be, the smartest kid on the team. If I don't, toot my own horn a little bit there.
Well, but they say it is important. They, that's coach, and they do say, ask the quarterback has to know the play, know what everybody does, But yeah, like you say, they say the centers are really the quarterbacks of that offensive line, and they're the ones that really, you guys dictate more what the success or failure of the play is going to be, because with the job you guys have to do first, you guys, and in Homer's case, 90% of the time the tight end is involved in a lot of that also, because he's really a blocker. There's been a few tight ends in Homer history that are turned out to be super receivers as well. Your brother wasn't too bad at it. He never realized he was a top 15 list. I've worked on one of the things in the retirement, we've never had the receiving list in football was beyond Jim Curry, that 1984-85 season, caught over 1,300, 1,100 and some yards as passes, but nobody ever knew who was after that. They never kept it for some reason. There was never a receiving season stat or season stats for the receivers. So I've been working on that, and I've got back through the 90s thanks to a big tub of stats from Coach Pacilic. And your brother fell in 13th in the list of receivers as far for yardage. So you said, God, it's nice to know I was actually in a top 15 list in football for something. Being the tight end.
I didn't know that. Homer football doesn't throw the football a lot. So I'd be interested to see how efficient we were too. When we do pass the ball, it's usually successful. And I think a reason for that is that we don't do it every single play. So I wonder what Coach P's passing efficiency looks like, because I feel like every time he runs a passing play, he's like, "Oh, I hate this so much." He wants to run the ball down your throat. Is what he wants to.
Yeah, we've got it for quarterbacks, so what that over efficient. But as far as who was catching the ball, there's just not that much out there. So I'm going to see how much more I can dig up through some other archives somehow. But your brother is 13th, but there's only been that 1,000-yard plus receiver, and that was Jim Curry. But you played at the beginning of a career of a guy who was number 2 on the list. He ended up with 998 yards, but I think he might have more touchdowns than Curry ever had, because it seemed like almost every catch he had went for a touchdown. in his grade. And he was only he was like you said, he was only a sophomore that first year with you, and that was Jaden Gavidia.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that kid's talk about super talented guys. He could fly.
So here's where the story gets interesting. You got through that 2012 football season. We get to the spring, and it's lacrosse season. You're on the JVs at that point, and that's kind of where this set the stage for everything else. The rest of that sophomore season for you, and then it transitioned to a great overall story for the football team in 2013. For personal milestone for you, and it transferred over to you didn't get to play lacrosse your junior season of 2013, and but were the goalie in 2014. Um, you suffered an injury, and it was a lot of people said you were done playing, you weren't going to play anymore, and you alluded to it a little bit when we talked within the Trojan football talk one. We talked about it involved a lot of neck rehab and stuff, but you said it happened in lacrosse and lacrosse practice. So what was actually happened? What was the injury? And then we'll go from there on how the rehab went and everything.
Yeah, I'll walk you through it. So for beginning of spring, when the field's still covered in snow, we would go down to the JM Sports Complex to host a practice, or have our practices. And we're just doing little half-field stuff. And Anthony Basile, who was a great attackman as well as a great guardsman in football, he shot on goal and it ricocheted and hit me in the back of the neck, and I dropped. And practice stopped, and I got back up and was just a little dazed, but continued on like it was nothing. But I remember we were on a bus one day going to I don't know where, probably some away game, and I'm like, I can't feel anything in my fingers right now. Like, this is kind of funny. I've never had this happen before. For being dummies on the bus. So I'm having my buddies like, here, pinch my finger. I can't feel it, thinking it's funny and stuff. But, it ended up being pretty serious. I told my doctor about it, and he ordered a MRI, and we found that I had it's called Chiari malformation and syringomyelia. And basically what it is when your brain, the bottom part of it, called the cerebellum, it herniates down the base of your skull, and it leads to loss of sensation in your hands, and sometimes in bad cases you could be paralyzed for the rest of your life. And it's not like that hit that I had when Anthony hit me, that's not what caused it. It was an underlying condition that I've always had since I was a baby, or since I was born. So without that, I would have never found out about it, and who knows what could have happened if it had gone untreated. But yeah, I got surgery. I finished the lacrosse year once I found out, and then got surgery that summer. And it was pretty intense. At Upstate, I had a great group of surgeons. Satish Krishnamurthy was my surgeon's name. He had to take out C1, your first vertebrae of your neck. He took that out and cut out a piece of my brain, which is pretty wild to think about. But from there it was just rehabilitation, and getting off the painkillers they had me on made me so sick, and it was quite the process. But I knew my goal was to come back for Homer sports. That's what my life was up until that point.
Yes. So it's obviously it can be a serious brain injury, but it wasn't that you took a shot to the helmet or anything like a blow like that, which can lead to concussions and stuff like that. It was just a ricochet off the goal that in a spot where there's really just no padding.
Right. Yeah. You don't wear any pads back there. If certainly nobody's going to check you in the back of the neck. It was just kind of a freak thing where a ricochet shot. And yeah, I wonder, Bays probably felt horrible about it. His dad was, funny enough, was the goalie coach at that time, Dave Basile, great guy. But Anthony Basile.
Yeah, no, yeah. You talk about, you want to learn about how to be a goalie. Dave Basile is one of those guys. He's definitely a guy. Between him and Rich Barnes, Homer's got two very good goalie coaches in house too. Well, neither one's in house anymore. Dave has his own business there, so he volunteers his time. And Richie just retired. just retired as a
That's
teacher
right.
in junior high this year. He just ended up, so he's now officially retired. Uh, but I think he still wants to stay involved in coaching and stuff if he can. I think he likes that. But I know he's got a bucket him and his wife want to work on too. But we kind of joked about it back in Trojan football talk though too. You and he was one of the seniors on that team. We talked about, and you said you guys it's like you say, it's not funny, but your friends thought it was funny. Well, I can't feel my fingers, so there's that little comedic side to it. But a guy you say that you used to get confused with in high school is one of the seniors on that football team with you, Seth Ruddock, and he is actually a comedian now. There may be some kind of weird correlation there too, maybe.
Yeah, I was my senior superlative was class clown, so I don't know if the teachers or everybody's just thought I was Seth Ruddock, even after he graduated, hey, that kid's a funny kid. Yeah.
So as we said, you went through the surgery, and obviously very dangerous and surgery and stuff. And a lot of people really said, yeah. And like you say, it's ironic that it was a condition you kind of had a certain part of that condition was in there already. And if you hadn't got hurt, it wouldn't have shown up. So like you said, yeah, what would have happened? Who knows down the road, but you had the surgery and then it was that long road to recovery. I mean, you had the people that, that you dealt with up at Upstate Medical Center. And of course you had guys like Adam Long, who was a trainer at the time in Homer, and Dave Boylan, who was, handles a lot of rehab stuff for a lot of different people in the area, period, for rehab stuff, not just, Homer athletes, McGraw, Cortland, any of them. But the rehab process began. What was some of the stuff you had to do to get yourself back into a place, like you said, you wanted to play football in the fall?
Yeah, that's where I had to start. It's fall sport. You got to get your strength back up to play football. And my mom was not a fan at all to that idea, but I knew that's what I wanted to do just because that's all I knew was to play football. So, yeah, I mean, like you mentioned, neck strength was what came first. And then, getting your body back into the swing of things is second, getting your first licks out there, getting hit and, getting back up to speed. But then it was from there, it's just getting back in the gym, building that strength up, because I was bedridden for like a couple weeks, maybe a month after that process. So it was a lot of just starting over, and then it's like riding a bike from there, just getting back in the swing of things.
And to build, like I said, you had a lot of it was building the muscles up in your neck, especially with football, a much heavier helmet than a lacrosse helmet is. Even for a goalie, it's not a heavy. Lacrosse helmet is not heavy for a goalie even, but what were some of the exercises that specifically you would have to do to kind of, work on building up your neck?
It was just a lot of turning up and down, nod your head, shake it side to side, stuff like that. And once you build that strength up, and it was weird. My surgeon was never concerned with, how my head was. It was more like it was very balance oriented, because a part of your cerebellum has to do with your reactions and your sense of balance that part of the brain deals with. So it's a lot of regaining your sense of balance and that aspect more, and as well as building up that strength too.
And obviously two things very important, especially if you want to be a lacrosse goalie. Two things that are very important: the coordination parts and the balance part and stuff like that. So I mean, it's obviously. So we said, well, the fall came around and you were rehabbing all through football season. And of course, it was the year before the sectional title. It was an 8-0 start for the Trojans that year. They lost in the sectional semifinals to Oneida to end up 8-1 on the year. It was, as I said, that was kind of Alec Bush's coming out party, 1,333 yards. He got that year on his way to eventually becoming the all-time leading rusher in football history. The guy behind him was a guy that kind of battled his own injuries with his legs and knees and everything else, was Gage Root on that team. Chris Brown, again, was one of your classmates, along with Jake Casey, as we talked about. And now at this point, Jaden Gavidi is a junior, also a junior quarterback. The year before, like I said, Casey Clary had graduated, so he had a new quarterback and a junior, and very familiar to the football program. He was around you guys even when he was a kid. He was around the football program. Drew Cottrell took over the quarterback reins that year, and again, a very good group. But it was funny. It was a small group of seniors, but this again set the groundwork for another number 2 or 3 years of in the continuation. We talk about how the tailback tradition transfers over. It transfers over in the line as well. Really, you look at the progression of the good linemen that come through, and like I said, the seniors. You had a good group of seniors that were back. It was Brent Bishop, Nick Holgram, Sean McGrath, and then you came along at the end of the season. But there was a junior-laden group of linemen involved in there. Tim Russell, Matt Suits, the younger brother of Paul. Anthony Basile's back for his second season of football. But then there's also some sophomores. I've missed him when we did the football side of things, but actually I forgot one of 3 sophomore linemen. You had Lucas Miller and Zach Clark. We'd mentioned them before, but also Dylan Hotchkiss was in that group of I was only a sophomore lineman. So, I mean, it was a very young offensive line that even though you were rehabbing, you were still around the team a lot. And three seniors had your hands full. A lot of guys to train to pick up the slack in the years to come.
Definitely, yeah. Those guys who were there, 3 years, I think they're the ones who brought everybody along and got kids up to speed quicker. Brought in the kids from their own class because they were in the system. If you talk about Anthony Basile, he was a lineman for 3 years on varsity and probably got the kids from his grade up to speed much easier than we did. But yeah, a lot of small class on our end, but the younger guys definitely stepped up.
And like you said, we talk about the coaching staff. Of course, Coach P has been around now 31 years. Tom Cottrell has been around with him, I think, over 20 of those years now. And it's probably been there close to 20 years. I mean, in my first year at the paper, he had a son who was the quarterback, Chris Whidden. Jim Whidden has been an assistant coach for a lot of years. The linemen, they were his baby. All those years that the linemen were his task, but then your junior year, he was a volunteer. The volunteer is not after his name on this next season. So I don't know if he became a paid assistant or if they split a salary somehow. But David Pacilic was back again, and more as part of the coaching family now. And again, he was a center. So I mean, you guys had a guy closer to your age to kind of talk to about, Coach Whidden grew up in the 70s, 80s, and that era of football. And David, of course, playing, more in the era you guys played in. So it gave you a younger voice to kind of talk, and work with you guys on how to become better linemen.
Yeah, he was definitely more the technical side of being a lineman, how to set your body, how to get those angles set when you're making blocks. And the older coaches were definitely more of like, getting your head right, getting fired up, and no, you got to bring the intensity. Whereas Coach Dave Pazil, or young Coach P, was more of like, no, all right, let's reel back a little bit. This is how you set a block.
So as we said, all season long, you didn't really get to participate in much of that 8-game winning streak, except win number 8 that it happened. It happened to be it wasn't so much senior night against Cortland the week before, but the first round of sectionals, the team that knocked Homer out the year before was Camden in the tournament. So this time it was a quarterfinal matchup against Camden, and not only did Homer win, but it was your game back in the lineup and at center for Drew Cottrell.
Yeah. Drew was a great quarterback and very mature for his age. He definitely gets that from his father. Being a coach and having a coach there, can't be goofing off with the other guys. You gotta act like your dad's in the room, which he is. But yeah, he's a young guy who was way out of his years. Drew Cottrell was.
So what was it like? Like you said, you finally got to go out on the field. You finally got to play a game, and like I think the interesting story was actually, I think the fun part about it was we talked about it on Trojan Football Talk. Dad knew you were coming back. You knew you were coming back. Probably your brothers knew you were coming back. The one person that didn't know was the nurse in the family, your mom, and she got a surprise from Mike Carboy, the athletic director, that you were going to be playing.
Yeah, that was not a good day, to be me. But and probably my mom would say the same thing. Yeah, Coach Carbs Mr. Carboy was not very pleased with the Connerys that day.
Well, in all fairness, like I said, yeah, maybe you didn't say anything to mom that you were back, you were going to suit up, and you were going to get to play, your final home game, as a senior in the sectional game. Dad didn't spill the beans either. So, I mean, you would think that maybe Dad, after raising 5 kids, would maybe tell his wife that, yeah, our son's going to play now again. He kind of hid too.
Yeah, my mom was just not having any of it, and we got the doctors okay. Coach P said he's cool with it. I wanted it like more than anything in the world, and my dad's just kind of looking at my mom like, Janie, can you play ball here or what? But I think I didn't get much playing time, so I'm sure she was thrilled with that.
But the point was, like you said, it meant a lot. Just you were a senior, and these are the guys you had grown up with playing, and to be able to get out on the field one last time with them, actually did meant an awful lot.
Absolutely, yeah, it meant the world. Coach B didn't have to do any of that. I'm sure, like a lot of coaches would be like, "No, it's not worth my time." Just you're a part of the team, but I told him, I said, I want to suit up. I want to really, try to do this. And he believed in me, and that meant the world.
And see, stuff like that, it reminds me, as much as, my days of covering the team, obviously Casanova, a big rival all those years in sectionals and football and lacrosse as well and stuff. And I remember that the one year, I can't remember if that's the year they played Homer and Homer beat them. But they had a quarterback that got hurt early in the year, and there was not a lot of chance he was going to get, he lost a lot of mobility and stuff, and really, really, really couldn't be playing. But first you kind of shook your head with about 4 or 5 seconds left that Casanova called it a timeout, and they had the game easily won, and you're kind of wondering what's going on. And I wish I could remember the kid's name that was the quarterback, but it was called out purposely so he could come out. He took a knee on the final play of that game. So I mean, that's it's got to be that kind of feeling. Yeah, you get your moment. So you got that senior moment at least, to play your last game.
Yeah, I think I went out for a kickoff, which was great to just be out there, and I think Coach even had them announce my name as part of the starting lineup, which felt good to get out there and hear your name being called. So yeah, it was no regrets. I wouldn't change a thing.
And so then you had time to continue some rehab, and you were cleared to play. So you were cleared to play, but it was, in your case, it's time to keep working and get better, get better shape and continue on. But you got to the senior season. You got to play lacrosse your senior season, and it was overall a nice season, 14-6 for that senior class you had in 2014. And just, a lot of, the losses are, the same usual cast the characters, only 6 losses, but one was the Lafayette, who's always considered a power. One was Fulton, because at that time Fulton was kind of having some good years as well in the mix of thing. And then, of course, a loss to Jamesville DeWitt. No surprise there, because JD is just the power that they are. Then the surprising loss, and Drew Cotter said, yeah, this was a surprising loss that you lost a 10-9 overtime game to ESM.
Yeah, that's right. But we got payback on them later on. But one of those losses that sticks out for me personally, I don't know if Drew said anything about that, was the Fulton loss. And I went into that game thinking, I wasn't really thinking much for Fulton that time, and I just was not on my A game. And his father, Coach Cottrell, was not pleased with my performance. So the next day at practice, we went out there and got the conditioning part over with, and then he does this drill with us where the defensemen don't have sticks, but they're still playing defense. So they shoot. If I make a save, I got to throw an outlet pass. And so first time goes up, I make a save, and I'm just holding it there. They don't have sticks, but they're like, pretend throw it. He's like, throw the ball. I'm like, so I snapped back at him. I said, they don't have sticks. So he looked at me, and he just shakes his head. He's like, everybody get on that end line. And he ran us for that. That was the only time I've ever talked back to a coach. And I wonder if you remember that. He said, they don't have sticks. He says, I know that. Get on the line.
Yeah, actually, he had 2 losses to JD. That's during the regular season, but then that was the irony of this. Like you say, the 10-9 loss in overtime to ESM. Your next game was again ESM again, and you came back and won 15-6. So kind of the revenge came quickly there, and you didn't lose again until the sectionals. You got into the sectionals, and as you said, this must have been a sectional final game. Because it had to be during sectionals because that's one time you ever really saw Watertown IAC, and you beat them in the first round of sectionals. Then you had a win over Skinny Atlas and Lafayette. Lafayette, a team that beat you earlier in the season, so another revenge win there. But it was a sectional final, I believe it was against Casanova. You lost that game 12-8, but football, everybody always talk about getting to the dome for football games, but a lot of times that's where some sectional finals were, and so. You got your dome moment. Unfortunately, again, it was Casanova to be the spoiler role. But what was it like playing a game? I'm sure you probably saw some Syracuse games during your day. Lacrosse game maybe during your days and stuff too. But what was it like? Playing in the dome in that sectional game.
When we found out we were playing in the dome, we were thrilled because growing up, that's your dream is to play in the dome one day. But usually the games are always held at CNS's field for lacrosse section finals. So when we found out, and I remember that obviously because the 2 years before we won the section finals against Cas. And I remember Anthony Conteno, who was one of the leaders on that team. His pregame speech was, "Guys, relax. This is it's just like any other game." And I think that's what kind of set the tone. I didn't get anybody too fired up. But when we were in the dome, we were just so excited and that adrenaline. I'll never forget how tired I was after warm-ups. And then it hit me. I was like, that was an adrenaline rush, just walking out into the dome, into that field. And yeah, the adrenaline was like no other. Playing in the dome is something I'll never, ever forget.
And we talk about, obviously, like I say, we don't talk about scoring a lot in the Connery family because more of them are on the defensive end. I guess Nick or Will was a little bit more of the offensive guy in lacrosse. Like you said, yeah, Ben was a goalie and you were a goalie. And but you go back and you look at that time, the year before in 2013, that was the year Bo Riley graduated. He was a 2013 guy, went to RIT. And you go down the list a little bit more, some guys that, you got the younger brother. He graduated a year later, though. But you got Dean Riley. It was a 2014 player on the team, and then some of the guys from your class. I know I was seeing them before. Brad Sovko was part of that 2015 team, but 2013 again. Brandon Maxim. That year you didn't get to play though, but some solid players. That was Sean Ferrito's senior year, and so you played with some very good guys. When you go back and look at the history of Homer lacrosse, there, you had a good, some good guys that you were involved with those years.
Yeah, there's certainly some great lacrosse players in Homer's alumni, and I was lucky to be part of teams with those guys you just listed. When I was a senior, just like football, it was a team dominated by mostly younger kids. I think there were 3-4 total senior players. Me, Chris Brown, Jacob Gray, and Brian Cavalier. I think that was it. So it was those younger guys, the 2015 class, who really had to step up and come into their own. But yeah, I mean, I was very lucky to have been a part of Homer athletics.
Yeah, well, like you say, you had I remember these guys were the scorers on that 2015 team. We said Anthony Basile. I think he might have been the leading scorer that year. If he wasn't, he was right there. And Brad Sovacool was on that 2015 team. One of the 2015 grads. And they put the ball in the net fairly good. A guy you did play with it had a nice career. Went on and played the Nazareth, which is where Andrew Van Patten's going to go now and play. And he just graduated from Homer. He's going to play lacrosse, not football. He's going to go to Nazareth, but that's where Anthony went. But that's where also one of your teammates, Jake Gray, went to.
Yeah, Jake Gray was just over at my apartment a couple of weekends ago. We're still great friends to this day, and he's a great lacrosse player too.
So you've reached the end of your playing career. As we said, you grew up in a family of 3 brothers and actually 2 sisters. That's always funny. I guess I always joke, now that I hear that I joke, I never knew you had a second sister. I knew Lucy, she played, but you had an older sister who was the one non-athlete of the family. Ben filled me in on that. But when you talk about who were the, of all of the 4 of you, who was the best athlete in the family?
Yep, I think it's Lucy, but there's something to be said about my eldest sister, Lindsay. She might have not played any sports, but she basically raised me and Lucy, the 2 babies, because she was, a teenager when we were just little kids running around, rugrats. And yeah, she was our babysitter. So I'm sure that's, takes some athleticism.
Like I joked, I said, I told you, Ben, I've talked to so far, and I'm going to talk to Will and Lucy here down the road. And Ben said, well, pretty much the older brother answer. Yes, I probably was the best one, but he goes, but if you want to talk about the best current athlete in the family, it's got to be Jack Connery, because Jack plays a killer softball now up in Syracuse.
Yeah. I think I'm the only one playing recreational sports, although Lucy might as well. But as far as physique goes, Ben, Will, everybody's got me beat. It's funny. They're both tall and muscular, and I'm kind of short and pudgy, but at least I got the head of hair. So I got that to hold my head high about.
Yeah, I noticed that Ben had more hair on the bottom of his face than the top of the face. So yeah, I did notice that.
There you
go. And we know, like you said, we've talked to him. He's in the line of, team apparel and teams equipment and stuff like that. Now, and he got his start kind of through Larry Brady, and then he also put some time with the people around here at Graftex. He got a little experience there before going on. He's now with BSN, and so we know your sister does some interesting things. I know I'm going to be excited to talk to her about that. She's got her own kind of little niche going, which I think is fairly fascinating. But what are the things Jack Connery does now, as far as since you've graduated?
Yeah, I moved to Syracuse with my fiance, and we're living up here and, trying to carve out our own little legacy that, we're pretty, know some people in Homer, New York, and now we're trying to know some people in Syracuse, New York. So I'm working as an engineer and, just doing the dang thing.
Did you, like I said, it was, you had, all the rehab you had to do that senior year to come back to, play football, and then you did play your senior year of lacrosse. Did you think about going to college and play sports at all?
Yeah, I played at SUNY Oneonta. I went there, I was in a 3-2 program, so I only played up till my junior year. I studied physics, and then I transferred to SUNY Polytechnic, and I didn't play sports there, but yeah, I was involved in the varsity men's team at SUNY Oneonta. And that was quite a culture shock. I had only grown up with, Central New York knowledge of sports, and Long Island, that is like, it could be its own state. Those guys, just the sports they got going on down there, the accents, it was a trip.
I think it'd be much of a fun of the trip if you played junior high football for a number of years in Homer. You had John Baden and Jeff DeBell.
Yeah, those guys, they got some accents on them.
Those I never got to a practice when they were coaching the junior high, but I saw John, of course, coaching baseball, and of course, Jeff coached baseball, coaching basketball, and some stuff. Yeah. And so I can imagine the kids were probably trying to say, what did he just tell us? But
Yeah, thick accents. My girlfriend's from that part of the state, and I'll catch her every once in a while. Like, what did you just say? Why did you say that? She's in a what?
so what is this big like Ben says you're the softball king.
Yeah, you know what? Chicks dig the long ball, Tom. I'm sure you know that. You play a little softball yourself, and yeah, you gotta. I play first base. I like picking bad throws. It's kind of give me the same thrill as being a lacrosse goalie.
Now, actually, I started out playing a little bit of third, but I just said I don't like the ball hit that hard at me. But I was good at first base too. So yeah, I was pretty much a first baseman, and yeah, I wasn't at this point of my life when I was playing. I wasn't a 100-yard dash guy or a 220 or 440 guy. I was in high school track in the mid 70s. So yeah, it was up to me to carry my bigger frame by trying to hit the ball as far as I could over, out by the light poles and hope you could, leg out maybe a double out of that if you're lucky.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, if I'm lucky.
That was, see, that really was Babe Ruth because he couldn't run the first in his end of his career. But anyways, looking down the road, like you say, congratulations on the fact that you're getting married. That's going to be a new chapter in your life, and it'll be fun. And down, between now and then, if you have kids along the way, it probably will maybe enhance that idea. But any thoughts of getting back still and doing some coaching or something? There can't be too many real good guys that could teach kids how to be lacrosse goalies around.
Yeah, I've done a little bit of that, just on the side. I've never been a part of like a school team or anything like that. But, lacrosse is definitely a part of this area. And I might, take what I've learned and that knowledge that Homer has given me and that the ethics that's kind of installed in me and try to bring that maybe up here in Syracuse to one of these schools around the area. Try to give them what I've learned in Homer.
As far as getting to know sports, obviously Ben got hooked on lacrosse once because he didn't really think much about it at Cortland because it wasn't that great there. But when he got to Homer, he really kind of took a liking to lacrosse. But it's got to be something you grew up, Central New York. Long Island, it's its own world, and what they do with lacrosse obviously is its own world. But for many years, I can remember my first brush with lacrosse was 1980. I just had never been to a lacrosse game in my life, and I was living I was living in Dryden, just outside Ithaca. And well, it just happened to be that year happened to be the NCAA Division I national championship game was being played in Cornell in Sholkoff Field. And so I've never saw lacrosse. So, I went to some football games and some hockey games and some other stuff, but I never checked out lacrosse. So let's go, Cornell was good lacrosse back then. It was good. So I went and, so my introduction to lacrosse, the first time I ever saw a championship game, it was Virginia against Johns Hopkins.
Wow, that must have been a good game to watch.
I think, if I'm not mistaken, I think Virginia won it, but don't quote me on that because that was too many years ago to actually remember. But that was my first brush with it, and then I got involved. I got to cover some, I got to seeing some lacrosse after that because I got hooked up for a while. Even though I was working full time, I was doing some stat work for the radio station. Did a lot of the Cornell games. The guy I started doing stats for, he saw me at a basketball game. So, what are you doing? I said, I'm just keeping stats. So, gee, how'd you like to do it for me? And so I got up there and so I became a statistician for the radio station there. And he's now the play-by-play man for the Miami Heat. He's been there for his whole career. But when I said we got to, I got to see football, saw guys like Derek Harmon who went on and played in the NFL for a while and also played lacrosse, got to see basketball and lacrosse. And the fun part about lacrosse was, of course, that's when Richie Moran was still the coach at Cornell. And he's because I didn't really know a lot of people in the area who could be my daughter's godfather. So actually, Richie Moran is my oldest daughter's godfather. And Joe Brown, the baseball coach, and the successful baseball coach at SUNY Cortland, Joe Brown is my younger daughter, Katie, who just graduating from Cortland State this year. Her godfather is Joe Brown. So
yeah. I know Coach Brown very well. Coach Brown is a great guy. I went to his camps too when I was a young whippersnapper, and I had a great time. And he was always good to me. And he eventually went on to coach one of my best buds, Jake Casey, who had a successful career there. But yeah, I know Joe Brown, and he's a great guy to have be the godfather, right?
Yep. No, so we got kind of sidetracked there, but as I say, a way to get hooked on lacrosse for all obviously you guys, I know it was big for Ben and stuff, was you're Homer right in the hotbed between Cortland State's, of course, coming on. And of course, they had a good, Richie Barnes took them 1 year as the interim coach to a national title at Cortland State. But then you've had, like I said, Cornell and Hobart was always good off and on, has been good and off. They kind of tailed off since they went Division I from Division III. But a lot of, in Syracuse, of course, a lot of great lacrosse for a person to go watch and learn from.
Yeah, and it feels like all lacrosse roads lead back in some way or another to Homer. You talked about Rich Barnes being a successful lacrosse coach, winning national championships. And he's over here also doing modified lacrosse on the side. And yeah, my brother Will, of course, went and played a little bit at Hobart, William Smith, but for a little time there. But yeah, it feels like Homer's a real deal hotbed for lacrosse talent.
And the coaches are cropping up everywhere now. We said Zach McMullen's the coach at TC3, and their program's coming on. And you got Jake Kuhn just won a national championship for RIT. He's out there coaching. Then you've got arguably one of your brothers says one of the best lacrosse players ever around. And Jake Plunkett, he's a coach at he's now rebuilding his second program, rebuilding the Muhlenberg program with the help of another Homer alum, a younger Drew Cottrell now is his assistant. So it's
wow. I didn't know that. That's awesome. They're working together.
So you got that Cornell connection now in the coaching ranks. And of course, SUNY Cortland's coach when Richie took over that 1 year is the year, I think that was the year that Leland Rogers left SUNY Cortland and went over and started coaching at Lemoyne for a while. Mm-hmm. And I think it was Lemoyne he ended up going to. But you also talk about coaches and, programs, TC3 is coming on in junior college, the college ranks around here. Onondaga Community College for years has been a lacrosse power. And of course, Lemoyne, the last number of years too, has been a very solid. So you've had years where, Syracuse was the spot to be between Onondaga Community College, Lemoyne, and Syracuse. They were all vying for national titles.
Right. Yeah. Central New York is probably the place to be when it comes to lacrosse, but yeah, our friends from Long Island will probably tell us otherwise. They'll say, "No, this is where it's at down here."
Yeah. So as we said, you're getting married and everything, and what someday maybe like to do a little bit of coaching and stuff. Where do you see Jack Connery's life? 5-10 years down the road.
Yeah, we'll see. I hope to keep sports a part of my life. It's crazy to think. You go your entire life playing sports, and then one day you get a diploma, and that it all comes to a screeching halt. But I'm trying to keep that flame alive, even if it's just a little bit of softball on Sunday mornings. Yeah,
and that's what I say. I always, people say, "Well, my kids can't play anymore because they've got to get a job if they want their car, if they want their clothes, they want this or that, or want their new, PS4 or PS5 and stuff like that." But high school sports, from 99% of kids, this is it. This is your one chance to be part of a team and, be part of something. So it's special. So it's better when the parents can help make sure the kids take care of that. And like you said, your father's done it for 4 of you. And, those that, don't get that opportunity, you kind of feel, you feel sorry that, yeah, you're going to work the rest of your life. But just to get a chance to get out and play a sport or two for, these few years, by the time you're, like you say, you're 18, you're 99% of you are done playing any more period, unless you do play pickup softball or, something like that.
Right. Yeah. And that's tough to do, you get so busy, but yeah, sports, you should try to keep that a part of your life because, it's all you know.
Well, Jack, like I said, it's that's one of the biggest reasons I know of the Connery brothers. I knew you weren't the big stat guy of the group because of your positions you played, but there's probably not going to be a more interesting story in the Connery family about how you came back to play, sports your senior year. And I think I think that was well worth letting people, hear about.
Yeah, Tom, thanks. I appreciate that. That's nice.
And that'll do it for this edition of TV on the Net. Today's show brought to you by American Credit Union, for every day, for everything, located next to Little Caesars at 3944 Route 281 in Cortland, by Right Angle Creek Farm and Marathon, all natural, pasture-raised Angus beef from our farm to your table, by the Cortland Voice, the exclusive media partner of TV on the Net. For all your local news and sports in Cortland County at no cost to you, check out cortlandvoice.com. By the Royal Auto Group on Route 281 in Cortland, the home of no hassle, no razzle-dazzle. Check them out at royalautogroup.com. By Yemen Real Estate at the entrance to Yemen Park off I-81 exit 11 in Cortland. And by DJ Philly C. Make your wedding, party, or event extra special with the best DJ in the area. Contact DJ Philly C at 607-745-4346. So for my guest, Jack Connery, and yours truly, Tom Vartanian, thank you for listening, and we'll talk to you again soon.